Will the new Chinese digital currency become the next world reserve currency? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I have had so many requests to talk about the central bank digital currencies, and I wanted to focus on one specifically in this video. The first thing we are going to talk about is digital currency. I'm going to give you a full breakdown of what you need to know. The second thing will be the USD impact. How will this affect the US dollar? And the third thing would be the financial changes. How is this going to affect you? I'm going to look at all of these details today and so much more. Let's begin. The first thing I want to discuss is what is China's digital currency? Let's break it down. I'm going to show you many articles today, but let's begin with this one here out of the SCMP. China's digital currency. When will the Yuan be launched and what will it be used for? China began exploring the concept of a sovereign digital currency in 2014 following the success of e-commerce platforms Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu. So what are we talking about here? This is something like PayPal. Think of this. They are giving you the ability to transact in something that is kind of outside of the normal system. Think of this in a different way, and you've got the central bank digital currencies, which are not being used yet necessarily, but they are starting to gain steam. There's a test run happening now with China's digital currency, and of course that has been expanded. You could see right here, foreign consumer brands, Starbucks, McDonald's, and Subway were named by the People's Bank of China as participants in the initial pilot program, along with Ant Financial, Tencent, and 19 local restaurants and retail shops. We look closer at what this is all about. You can see the Wikipedia article. It just breaks down, the sort of simplified things that we need to know. And I'm not going to get into it all, of course, but you may see it being referred to as the e-cny, the digital RMB, and the DCEP. But you can call it whatever you want. It's a central bank digital currency. The Federal Reserve, on the other hand, they haven't really come up with anything publicly yet, though they have talking about a digital currency. So we'll discuss that more in a minute. And essentially what they're saying here, it is in fact legal tender. It has the equivalent value with other forms of CNY such as bills and coins. The digital yuan is designed to move instantaneously in both domestic and international transactions. It aims to be cheaper and faster than existing financial transactions. The technology enables transactions to take place between two offline devices. So it operates just like you would have with a cryptocurrency, but it's controlled entirely by the People's Bank of China and therefore by the government. Okay? So, they get into the history and the testing and so on. But I think it's important to understand that this is not like you would have with Bitcoin, but it has elements of that, okay? But it's not private. It's controlled by the government, okay? Let's just talk about more of this, but showing this right here just to give you a little bit of insight. China's digital yuan could pose challenges to the US dollar. China is beating the US when it comes to innovation in online money, posing challenges to the US dollar's status as the de facto monetary reserve. Nearly 80 countries, including China and the US, are in the process of developing a CBDC, or central bank digital currency. It's a form of money that's regulated but exists entirely online. China has already launched its digital yuan and to more than 1 million Chinese citizens, while the US is still largely focused on research. So China has gone way out there and they said, let's push this thing forward. Whereas you've heard Jerome Powell with the Federal Reserve say, let's hold back. So the question obviously is, how will this impact the US dollar? Let's get into that. So of course, during this research, you got MIT, and they're parsing out what a digital currency might look like for Americans. Privacy is a major concern, so research and analysts are observing China's digital yuan rollout. I think that's a little bit funny. I think that if there's a digital dollar, privacy is going to be a very, very important part of that. The US is pretty different than China. Well, it's funny because already they have complete and entire, overview of what happens in the markets. If something's flowing through the US systems, we know that it's all tracked and traced. But this is another level. This is increased. And they want to get rid of cash. They want to do away with it in favor of a cashless society. They've made that very clear. Another concern is access. According to Pew, that 7% of the Americans say they don't use the internet. So you've got this group of people who's not going to be able to utilize it. So what's going on? They're using cash right now. If the cash goes away, what happens to them? Well, that's why they're trying to force everybody to get on. Most of the work that we're doing assumes the CBDC will coexist with physical cash and that users will still be able to use physical cash if they want to, and that's fine. But you got to understand, the stores themselves will not accept it at some point. So you can have your cash, you could transact between two people, but the stores might say, I don't want that stuff. It's so difficult to deal with. I don't want to deal with it. And then I got to bring it to the bank physically. This is such a nuisance. It's a hassle. So they can do it this way. The United States should not rest on its current leadership in this area. It should push ahead and develop a clear strategy for how to remain very strong and take advantage of the strength of the dollar. The digital yuan is the largest threat to the West that we've faced in the last 30 to 40 years. It allows China to get their claws into everyone in the West and allows them to export their digital authoritarianism. Well, I don't know how much of that is true. That's Kyle Bass. He generally says things like this. They've already got the dominance, and it's done more so through their loans and through their infrastructure projects and so on. But that's a whole different story. Let's look at this. How China's digital currency is leading the race to displace Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Now, I actually think it's completely different. I don't agree with that, but this article is talking about that. As governments grow increasingly wary of cryptos, centralized digital currencies are seen as a way to streamline activities and preserve public trust. What I think this will actually do is provide more trust to things like Bitcoin, because people will say, oh, digital currencies. Okay, I understand it because we're already using that. Right now, it's foreign. They don't want to touch it. China's success with its digital yuan is pushing the rest of the world to create their own digital currencies, putting cryptos under pressure. That's what they're saying, but I have a different viewpoint personally. So now let's talk about expansion, what it all means, and what's happening. So let's take a look. The digital yuan of China to integrate smart contracts. Does that sound familiar to you? It might be to some people. The China Central Bank has revealed many facets of its CBDC in a newly released white paper. One of the plans is that the PBOC will utilize smart contracts for digital currency. This is similar to many other cryptocurrencies that are out there. In fact, they do talk about, saying blockchain, but not specifically using that term blockchain. Instead, the white paper mentioned the currency is based on digital signatures, encrypted storage, and digital certificates to ensure that the transactions are secure and there'll be no double spending. I think what's also important to note is that this gives them extra control. This is directly out of a translated article, okay, and people.cn, and I will show you right here what they had said. So, of course, the translation is not perfect, but you'll get the point. The signing of the joint construction agreement of the National Financial Industry Cryptographic Application Research Center and the release of the results of the Blockchain Research Institute held in, and I can't pronounce that name. It's essentially just showing you that they are effectively getting into the blockchain. They're researching this. They're formally doing so publicly, and cryptography is part of this. So we're getting a sense of what this is all about. Number one, from what they're doing in this case here, they're publicly showing it. They're doing so with the actual testing of it. They're showing you pull out your phone. You can use that as part of the test. They've got these American companies that are part of that beta test, and everything so far has been flowing along. But what is the goal here? What are they trying to achieve? Well, that is, of course, up to your interpretation. But I wanted to show you this just to give you some idea of how much money has been moving through. China's digital yuan trial reaches $5.3 billion in transactions. Nearly 21 million individuals have virtual wallets. The central bank won't set a timetable for the official rollout, but you already have 21 million people using it. This is quite large, no doubt, even given the size of the population. China's digital yuan trial expands to 10 million eligible users. This was, of course, on July 8th. Previously, they had some detail in here. I don't think I have time to get into it all, but just quickly, we have confidence to continue increasing the scope of the trial, and the Olympics will be the next key trial area. So we'll see what happens during that time, if that even happens. But I just want to show you specifically that, on one hand, they're shutting down all kinds of crypto-related things, the mining and so on, but then they're implementing their own. So maybe they see it as competition, but they shouldn't. But that's, of course, up to them. And people got to deal with this. And this will come, of course, this will come to all countries around the world in a matter of time. So let's quickly go through the money GPS insights. Number one, China's digital currency is much further ahead than other countries such as the US. Number two, billions in transactions have already gone through. Number three, it's only a matter of time. This is going to be rolled out in most other countries around the world. So get ready for it. It's coming, and you need to understand how this allows them less competition and more control. If you haven't already, you gotta join up to the insiders, because that's my way to get to you directly and you to get to me directly, okay? This is a fantastic way to do so. We get around their systems every single day. I'm hearing from people talking about how they aren't able to find my videos anymore, but unless they actually search for me manually. Truly unfortunate, but anyway, that's the way it goes. So you can get on this for free at themoneygps.com. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button. It supports me. You just gotta click that one button. Thank you very much. If you haven't already, join up on the Instagram, the Facebook, and the Twitter. All of these posting all kinds of useful information and now some funny stuff as well. Check me out at The Money GPS. If you haven't seen this video already, you've got to take a look. Click on it and I will see you there.